If we're gonna stop the crooks, us cops gotta know who they are. That's the Rock Crusher. No jail can hold him. And here's Berserko, a dangerous street punk.
Meanwhile, at the crook's hideout.
Look out for Long Arm. He's a tough street cop. Sergeant Mace, the SWAT team leader. And Bulletproof's a federal agent.
Give up, you crooks. You're surrounded by the cops.
Cops and crooks, each sold separately, with caps.
What's up, my ninjas? I'm Strydent, and I am here with a toy review. It's another Cops review. This time I'm reviewing the leader of the Cops team, Baldwin P. Vess, aka Bulletproof. Now, this figure that you see before you, like I said in the preview video, he is 20-something, about 26 years old. And that means we got him when I was between the ages of 9 and 11, because we moved to New Jersey from Ohio the first time when I was like about to go into 4th grade or something like that, or I was just about to start 3rd grade. And so that was like 88, 89, and we watched Cops, you know, a little bit later. But this is the very same figure that me and my siblings played with when we were kids. And there's proof of it, and I'll get to that when I get to the articulation. As you know, Cops is the spiritual successor to G.I. Joe. They share a lot of the same construction, especially the O-ring G.I. Joes. I'm using a Resolute figure to try and, you know, give you a little height comparison so you can see that it's similar construction, just bigger figure. The difference between, obviously, the modern G.I. Joe versus the old school one is the lack of the O-ring. But, you know, there's your size comparison. And it was really cool, too, because, you know, G.I. Joe, for me, at the time that Cops came out, I was tired of G.I. Joe. I was kind of getting to that point where I was just like, because it seemed like G.I. Joe hit a pinnacle. It was at its pinnacle when the movie came out. And then after the movie, when they switched over to, from Marvel Animation or whoever that was, to Deke or whatever, Deke, to Dick, when they switched to Dick, the show was just kind of like, you know, like the animation went downhill. So I was getting tired of G.I. Joe, and Cops came around just at the perfect time, and I was all in with Cops. And, you know, at the time, like I said in the preview video, which, you know, I have to reiterate a lot, we were all about RoboCop, and, you know, that toughness and that rawness that RoboCop had, and mixed with the whole sci-fi feel, because we had never seen, I mean, we were kids, we never seen anything like that in real life. We probably shouldn't have even seen RoboCop at the time, but we did. And, you know, that helped make me like Cops even more. And Bulletproof, I loved the character because his everything, his demeanor, his style, his voice. He had this deep, strong, powerful voice, and everyone listened to what he had to say. And it was crazy because, like, before this, you had like Roadblock, you had Jazz, you always had these like jive talking, kind of goofy, happy, like almost caricatures, you know, of black culture at the time. And I was a little kid, so, you know, I liked those characters, but I always liked the other characters more. Like, I mean, every kid liked Optimus Prime, and it had nothing to do with culture. It just had to do with the fact that he felt like a father figure. You know what I'm saying? Bulletproof was kind of a throwback to that. He felt more like he was the definitive leader of the group, you know? This figure changed hands with me and my brother. He got my older sister to get it for him even after I asked for it for my birthday. So I guess, you know, somehow she didn't hear it, and he got her to do it, and she did it. And then over the years, he lost interest, and then guess who ended up with Bulletproof? Shit, the rest of the Cops, you know? And he was hardcore into figures for a while, and then he kind of went in a different direction with, you know, what he's into. I think he collects games, video games, more than figures nowadays. But I still try to remind him. I'm like, don't you forget where you came from, boy. You used to love these damn things. Nah. Yeah, we really like developed a lot of traits that kind of flow into the things that we do now from playing around with C.O.P.S figures, you know. Backstory. Larry Hama wrote the backstories for the C.O.P.S, just like he did for G.I. Joe. So reading those, we had to learn how to kind of incorporate that into our universe. And our universe was a little bit more hardcore. Speaking of which, Bulletproof was the commissioner in our universe for a while because there was no Commissioner Gordon figure. And that was the Batman that I used back then. I don't think he had that cool cape. I just recently did that, like, well, before I started doing the custom capes, that was one of the first that I did. But that was the very same Batman. So, you know, we used our C.O.P.S to fill in the gaps where we needed human characters, mainly police, with our superheroes, you know? So Bulletproof did a lot of things. I had him fight a lot of characters. At one point, he was even a Power Ranger, which was weird. But, I mean, that's the way we did things, man. It was cool to let your imagination run wild. So as you can see, we had a lot of history with, well, I have a lot of history with this figure. He comes from a time period where, you know, at like 9 years old, I was introduced to a lot of things, and I got to kind of act those things out, you know, through Bulletproof and the rest of the C.O.P.S, which was pretty cool. Like I said before, the biggest influence on all of that was RoboCop. So a lot of our universe was based on RoboCop, complete with the, you know, crime wave hitting the city, the ridiculous ultra violence, all the gangs and stuff. I remember, I think we used to use Monstar as the leader. Remember Monstar from Silverhawks? I won a figure of him from some carnival thing at my mother's job at the time, and we used him as the leader of like the gang that was terrorizing Empire City. And it was funny because we lived in New Jersey and we used to go visit New York, which Empire City was kind of modeled after. But also, when we had our little battles, we had these Faber-Castell colored pencils that when you wet them, they were like, I think they were water soluble. So when you wet them, the crayon part would get wet and cake up, and we would splotch that on our, you know, C.O.P.S figures and the criminals or crooks, and it would look like, you know how in RoboCop when people got shot, all that meat was hanging off of them and stuff, and it was just gross. We would do that on the C.O.P.S figures, so things would be all dramatic and really, you know, kind of gross and ultra violent. It was funny, man. It was just like, it was freaking awesome. There's no two ways about it. It was freaking awesome. It makes me miss being a kid. But like I said, RoboCop was a big influence, and it was funny because, you know, the cops were the police department that RoboCop was introduced to in our little universe. And I know I'm giving you a lot of backstory, but I want to explain to you the difference between the time, you know, then and now. So we had the crappy Kenner RoboCop. It's not horrible, but it doesn't look like RoboCop. But then, you know, you see how things are cyclical, and here we are again. There's RoboCop. So if I want to redo this with my son, I can. It's just awesome. It's an extremely satisfying feeling to see things from your childhood, you know, get things from your childhood exactly how they were, and then see versions of things you had as a child upgraded, you know, to today's standards. You know what I'm saying? I just love it. It's such a good feeling, and you rarely get it. Especially, you see my other reviews, so you know, this is rare for me. You know, I try to collect things that would help keep things, you know what I mean, in that direction. Now, one of his accessories that I managed to keep was his briefcase. And it's got some cool shit going on in there. You see smoke bombs, you see a copying machine, a miniature copying machine, a phone. There's a gun, a big old Rambo knife, a silencer. It's quality. It would have been more quality if those things could come out. But considering this was 1988, my imagination was all I needed. And that was the little piece to help spark my imagination. So when Bulletproof didn't have a gun, just dig into the briefcase and grab the gun. And I apologize for how out of focus that is. It's as if my camera doesn't want to do what it does and focus. I think it's a little bit better now, but you know, my bad about that. But I mean, look at that. Look at that pistol and the ammo. It's cool that they thought about this. And apparently Hasbro thought, you know, government agents or federal agents were just hardcore on another level, which is crazy. But you know, you could put another pistol in there, you could put, you know, evidence in there, you could pretty much use that however your imagination, you know, deems, however you and your imagination deem fit. Now, Bulletproof himself, he was a pretty cool figure. You know, this jacket is not his jacket. The gun wasn't his either. That gun came from the Chris Redfield figure from Toy Biz's first Resident Evil collection. Now, I chose that gun because it mimicked the pistols that they had in the TV show, which I think the only difference in the TV show is that they used to have sights on the top of the pistols, but it just looked like, you know, your typical federal agent, detective, gumshoe type, you know, pistol. You know, even in Hong Kong films, a lot of times, like super cop movies, the police only use 6-shooters because the goal isn't to murder the person. It's just, you know, wound them so you can stop their, you know, attack and bring them to justice. You know, and Bulletproof seems like that type of guy. Matter of fact, if I was to redo Cops, that would be the main thing I would add, is a whole bunch of martial arts, because they're supposed to be the elite, you know. So I'd have a lot of cool tactics, cool urban warfare tactics, but, you know, more so than that, I would have a lot of martial arts. But like I said, the coat came from Sting. It's a nice coat. It's the NWO Red Sting coat, and it lasted me just as long as Blades from the first Toy Biz Blade. Now, like I was saying earlier, because this is such an old figure, he obtained an injury in his leg, which was awesome. So he has articulation in one leg and not in the other. One knee and not the other. But we glued him back, because that's what you did back in the day. If your toy went down in the line of duty, you glue him, you let him sit out for a while till that glue dries, and then you get his ass back in there. It's like the best thing to happen, because it adds to the story of your character, you know? At least that's how we saw it, you know? But, you know, that's 26 years ago, and the figure still held up really well. I mean, how many figures can you say, you know, even in this day and age, that actually held up that well? You know what I'm saying? Some of them take a tumble off the fucking shelf and it's done. This guy, I played with him before I understood the concept of collecting. My brother played with him well before he understood a lot of stuff, and it survived. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's a testament to some good work there. And they do have peg holes in the back. So if they... if you have problems standing them, you could use a Revoltech stand or a Toy Biz flight stand to help them stand up. Which is a gripe that I have with these figures and O-ring construction all together, you know, as far as how Hasbro is doing it. They always stood up weird. But I still have to commend them on the sturdiness of the construction, you know, and the good use of paint. I mean, this was before they started going nuts with paint wash and all that shit. So looking at the character, it's actual light and shadow that actually helps make the character look good. So it's 100% hinging on the sculpt, and the sculpt is top notch. I mean, you can see all that detail on him. It's top notch. Everything is good. The little star on his chest or on his stomach, the wires that kind of form the like rib cage, the muscles around the rib cage. It's just so much detail, you know, and well sculpted detail that you really don't need that much for him. You know what I'm saying? And the little tweaks I did only made him and the others that much better. And, you know, a lot of my tweaks were really simple things, because a lot of the characters kind of hinge on their gimmick, you know what I mean? And it wasn't very hard to help, you know, add to those gimmicks. And these are all things that just add to the unlimited replayability of these figures. The C.O.P.S collection, man, it's just, there's so many gems here. I love the fact that so many of these characters are so individual, and Bulletproof is no different. I know he's light on accessories and gimmicks, but he is the gimmick, you know what I mean? And I love that about the figure. In a team where each character had a specialty, Bulletproof has, like, he is the specialty. You know what I'm saying? He's cybernetic. All the little gadgets were hidden inside of him in the show. You can pretend when he reaches into his jacket, he's pulling out pieces and things that are hidden in his cybernetics. You know what I'm saying? And you can't shoot him, because he's cybernetic. And it's cool because depending on which versions you read, and I read some of the books, they were by DC Comics, so DC needs to pay attention. They could redo this in animation, but he could have been all cybernetic, and that skin could be artificial. You never know. Or it could just be his torso. You know, it's all up to you. And that's how we used to use it. So, I'm Strydent. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. This has been a review of the C.O.P.S 1988 Bulletproof. And stay tuned for more pictures at the end. And I should have more videos coming up soon. I hope you guys dug. And, peace outside.